Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Automattic's Dev AI NYC. We're thrilled to bring together such a design-centric crowd here tonight. While you're here, I'd like to introduce you to a few people from Automattic. There's plenty of people around from Automattic, but these people will be wonderful wayfinders for you. So Kelly Hoffman, right here, co-leads our design team. Paul Main, right over here. Paul Main leads Day One, which is an amazing journaling app, and everybody should check that out. And also Paulo Belcastro here. If you want to learn more about domains or AI, Paulo's your guy. So they're all here with other automaticians tonight, and everybody here would love to connect with you. We're excited to bring together two voices at the intersection of creativity and AI. Robert Hodgin is a pioneering digital artist and creative technologist. Robert's work has helped define the field of generative art and creative coding. He's known for building interactive visual experiences that use software and design as artistic tools. And his work continues to influence how people think about digital creativity. Joining him is Pablo Honey, who co-leads design here at Automattic. Pablo is a thoughtful voice in conversations about AI and design, and has spent years shaping how people create and communicate. Tonight's fireside chat will explore the evolving relationship between AI, art, what these tools can do, and what they mean for human expression. Please join me in welcoming Robert Hodgin and Pablo Honey.
Thank you for that introduction.
That was nice.
Yeah, it was nice to hear.
It's nice when someone talks so nicely about you. I also want to introduce another guest called Kaido. Kaido will be listening to this conversation and will generate questions every 10 minutes based on what we talk about. We'll see if it works because it's not very reliable sometimes, but we'll leave it there and see what's happening. Kaido was a project that I did with Mahir Yavuz and Michael Hirsch 10 years ago. It was a bot that was running in Ars Electronica in Linz, Austria, to interact with the artworks and the artists there. So it was like an early AI bot, and today is back to be with Rob and myself.
So if I just start talking about 9/11 or like the potato famine, like that'll bubble up in the questions. Listening.
We'll see what happens. Yeah. Rob, thank you for coming and being here. I'm such a fan of your work, and you have such a long arc that we'll go through together.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, as well. There are a lot of plans on Thursday in New York City. Thank you for being here in this NoHo space. You're also part of this space as well. We'll keep having events here, so you're welcome to come back. Rob, I didn't go to a fancy school, but you kind of did, to RISD.
I did. I went to RISD.
And you studied sculpture, if I'm not mistaken.
You are not mistaken. But I went there thinking that I would be a painter. I was, at the time, an unemployed college dropout. I dropped out of UNC Chapel Hill. Was working poverty jobs, like serving scones to people. And then I decided I wanted to go to art school. I didn't know anything about RISD. I just I was like, Rhode Island sounds exotic. I could let's see what that's about. So I applied. I went there, but I thought that I was going to be a painter. And then when I got there, I saw that I was a very bad painter compared to people that were there for that major. So I switched to illustration, but I can't draw people, so that didn't work out. I contemplated glass blowing, but that seemed like a bad career decision. I ended up
They're
in the,
expensive though.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, less expensive.
I ended up in the industrial design department for about 2 semesters, and then decided I could just switch to sculpture and just do whatever I wanted to. And as long as I defended it in crit, then they couldn't give me a bad grade. But even then, like by the time I reached my senior year, Flash was starting to become a thing that people were making art for the internet. I mean, you've got to be at least 40 to even know what that sentence means. And so,
Woo!
so
So some are like,
yeah,
we're gonna go around flashing.
So I convinced my senior thesis advisor that I wanted to pivot completely to just doing digital art. So he allowed me to just focus on learning Photoshop, Flash, basic HTML stuff, and I just had to like give a presentation to him as my senior thesis project. So it was not a great use of whatever $80,000, whatever it cost at the time. But you know, it was a great experience. I just don't think I got out of it what I probably could have if I was a little more focused when I got there.
So we have that a little bit in common. I didn't go to a fancy school as you, but in my hometown in the northwest of Spain, Galicia, out of luck, I don't know why, what was the context, they had a pilot program to teach digital design in that school. And we were the first cohort to like learn digital design. And was very specialized in 3D in particular, but all digital tools. That was my first experience with Flash, and we'll get into that in a little bit. My tutor was an architect, and he had a virtual reality lab. This is early 2000s.
That sounds fancier than
Yeah,
what we.
so I'm saying like it wasn't fancy, but there was this kind of lucky moment and context where I was like learning, and again, I mean a lab like with headsets
Still
and like backpack, and there were sensors, and
Right.
he had this project called. And I mentioned this because like it kind of relates to your work, like to more recent, I guess, work. But it was called the Empty Museum. Empty Museum. So there were no artworks, and you would see the artworks, and you would be able to walk in the artworks and experience spatially, and so on.
That seems pretty sort of evolved for early 2000s.
Very evolved, yeah. So that kind of led me to this madness of digital design, and I was doing a lot of side projects and with live projections, and when there was no software, I bought in a hardware store like a analog switcher, so I was like switching between laptops and like projecting and stuff. But that led me to that curiosity within that space led me to Barcelona to go to OFFF and to learn early wrestle, the first versions of wrestle, to control the projections.
Right.
I think you were there.
I mean,
2004, 2005?
Maybe I've done 2 off Barcelonas. I know the second one was 2015. So, yeah, 2005 sounds right, but... You know.
I had a graphic design job, basically, in my hometown, and then I went there, and I was seeing our friend Joshua Davies' work over there, where he was like basically abstracting data from a BMW car.
Did he have like a separate room that was an installation that you could just go in and watch his projections, and there was like
yes
beanbag chair? Okay, so it was probably the same one.
Yes. Or the guy who blew my mind really is Yugo Nakamura.
Yeah.
When I saw Yugo Nakamura, if you don't know him, like it just changed my career because from there when I saw his work, his graphics, interactive graphics, beautifully crafted. It made me move to Barcelona basically, and then it just my career started there.
But he lived in Japan.
He lived in Japan. He came over to OFF, which was. Do you know what OFF means? OFF.
I think it was Online Flash Film Festival.
Yes, correct.
And now it's
something else. Yeah, but that's what it was. So I maybe we can show some of your work and
Sure.
Bridge that kind of RISD experience and the Flash, and then some of your recent work.
You got to make that cursor go away, though.
Yes. So I'll play it in loop.
Thank you.
If you can turn off the audio, do you want to talk over like some of this work?
Sure. I'm happy to talk about any of it.
Okay.
Most of it in this reel is done in Houdini. Much like my RISD career, I'm constantly changing tools. I never know what I want to work with. So it started with Flash. And then after a few years, I switched to processing, the Java framework, and then switched to C++. And then after 7 years of that, a little bit of C4D, and then Houdini, which Houdini stuck for a long time. It's still my favorite tool, but also there's some Touch Designer stuff in there as well. Nothing in this reel is AI generated. I have a fondness for collective animal behavior. It's sort of been my thing ever since I started working with Flash. I always wanted to find ways to make the pixels kind of do their own thing without needing to force them to like keyframe animate. So I got really interested in flocking sims, and so there's a few of those in this reel. What else? What else can I tell you?
What's your creative process for something like this? I remember my early experiences with Maya 3D and so on, and we were collaborating with production from college, from the school. We were working with production companies, and we were rendering, we were modeling, lighting, and adding textures and for them. And I remember the rendering experience was not so nice.
It's not. It's.
I wonder how the rendering experience is now, and how do you work around that in your creative process?
I spent a great deal of time being very interested in real-time interactive experiences. So the stuff that I did with processing and C++ in particular, I was building out things that I could interact with at 30 to 60 frames per second. The first audio visualizer I made was in processing, and it ended up being bought by Apple and got turned into the default iTunes visualizer. So that was nice. That was
hell yeah.
Yeah, especially if you use drugs. And then Houdini was this really great tool. We needed it for my company, Rare Volume, because we do a lot of interactive installations for museums and stuff. And a lot of that, we wanted to rapidly prototype, and Houdini was a really smart move for us because we could have sort of the architecture of the space. We could explore C++ ideas in code within Houdini because that was pretty straightforward to do. But I've never been a fan of the rendering process. Like, pressing a button and then walking away for 3 days and like you hope that it doesn't crash. That's not a fun way to work. And so lately I've been channeling some of my free time into getting up to speed with Touch Designer, and I feel sort of a spark reigniting because now I get to go back to 60 frames per second, immediate feedback. I get to work with like Arduinos and webcam and audio input. So that's been my focus for the last few months, is to try not to just stay in the world of renders because it's difficult to iterate at any reasonable speed if you have to constantly wait, for minutes for like a frame that happens to have like many light sources and like subsurface scattering, glass. God forbid you have glass in there as well. So now I'm back to my real-time interactive roots.
How does a day look like for you? Like, you were one of the founders of Rare Volume,
Yes.
But you're focused more on research and development.
Yes.
Which gives you a little bit more freedom to like go and experiment with some of this stuff,
Right.
or some others that feeds into your personal and back and forth. How does a day look like with?
Well, people that know me well know that I'm not great with clients, and so
Why?
Why?
Wait, you founded 2 agencies. Like,
Yeah.
So you're terrible with clients? Great.
I thrive when I get to explore things that I want to explore. And the problem with clients is they're paying you, and so they want you to explore things that they want to see. And that's, that there's a balance there that I never quite understood. I don't have the patience for so there's a specific type of client that will reach out and say, we've seen your work, you in particular, Robert, like, these flocking experiments. We want you to do something that's really art forward and like go crazy. And then I do, and they're like, well, our creative director decided it needed the brand colors, and can you put the logo in there? And also, here's the mood board that we forgot to send you. And I don't do well navigating those experiences. So head of R&D makes perfect sense because now I get to explore new tech. I get to like see what AI is all about. I get to take the time to sort of dive deep, and I get to work on personal projects that will inspire clients to be like, oh, we saw that thing that you put out as Rare Volume, as R&D. Most of this stuff, on the video behind you was just R&D stuff for my own amusement, and it's led to client projects because they're like, that thing, we want you to build it. Yeah, we'll have our creative director, figure out how it's going to look. But it's been a nice balance for me because I don't have to like put up with the bullshit if I don't want to. Like it's an opt-in for me. If the project looks like it's going to be fun, I'll opt in and work on it. Otherwise, I do have the luxury of having the freedom to explore new technology.
So I was secretly betting who would say AI first, and you said it.
Well, I mean, you did have an AI bot off you.
But I didn't say AI. Well, I did say AI.
I broke the seal.
I guess if we talk a little bit about AI, AI is already like self-improving itself and is close to probably like write its own AI, its own version of its own, its best version of itself, right? Yeah. So why bother? What are we doing?
Loaded question. I don't know. I've spent the last year doing conference talks. I see a hand raised. Are we doing Q&A?
Already? Not yet.
Not yet. Not yet.
We need to know you first.
The last 4 conference talks I gave, which were between October of last year and just last week in Milan, I basically get up on stage and make people really sad by telling them that we're all, like, essentially we're doomed. Art is being destroyed, in front of our very eyes, and we're powerless to do anything about it. What does this guy want?
What's the question? If Flash taught the generation to code, what did the death of Flash teach them to unlearn?
I'm just going to ignore that for now. He's got. What's he going to do about it? Like, exactly. He's going to flicker the lights. I have a love-hate relationship with AI. I think probably most people that use AI regularly like feel that tension where they're like, this is so easy. Like everything's suddenly really easy. And I'm just thinking about like the consequences of getting too enamored with some company's, baby doing all your work for you. And then you just have to pay it. You pay it to do the work, and then they've got you because now, a generation has forgotten how to code because they've gotten used to having the code written for them. The prices are going to start going up. I think people are going to start losing their creative edge because they're not exercising it. And so it definitely does depend on the day I'm having. And
what day do you have today? Is it pessimistic or?
Today's, like, I got down to the subway station and the B train just pulled right up. Like that's huge. Like that elevated my mood. It's just I'm just more and more cautious about how much I rely on it and what I'm seeing it do to the people the artists that I follow who also rely on it. And it's challenging because Houdini is a fun tool to use. It's not an easy tool to learn, and it's very slow. But once you sort of get the hang of it, it took me 5 years probably before I felt comfortable with it. I was able to start building the things that I wanted to build. But now I see myself having ideas that in the back of my mind, I'm like, this would be great. It would probably take me 6 months to do. I'm not going to bother. And I'll have AI bang out a version of it. I'll sort of giggle at it, and then I'll forget about it and move on. And I don't know if that's true for a lot of people. I know it's very true for me that it's made me not want to explore the things that I know are going to be hard and time-consuming, because I feel like we're getting to a point where that's not rewarded anymore. What's being rewarded is how quickly you can develop, how many tokens you can spend, how many agents you could have running at the same time. So no one's going to pay you to go learn how to do Houdini rigid body dynamics, which will take months and a lot of tutorials, because we've lost that patience.
And I guess the friction, right?
Yeah.
The friction that is inherent to any creative process.
Definitely.
I guess these tools are trying to remove that friction, but it does affect somewhat our artistic journey to land into whatever artifact we're trying to do. So
and I'm very aware that I'm this close to saying, in my day, and I'm constantly worried that that's how it's going to come across. We used to have to draw our own pictures, and you kids got it easy. But that is essentially a lot of what I'm thinking is that why are people going to spend the time to learn art and design if they don't have to? And that's it's something I think about a lot. And
what's your technical setup at home or at the office? I'm curious. I imagine
home
yourself.
Is my office.
Yeah, well, but you do also have.
We do have an office, but I have a nice 4090 PC at home. I have a curved 34-inch monitor or whatever, maybe it's 40. I don't know. I need to get a new one. I got a regular mouse. I have a space mouse. I have a few different cameras and peripherals, but mostly I just work off my PC. Yeah.
I have my friend, my artist friend Ronaldi here. We had last week we had an event where we invited Anna Kulacek and Ronaldi Navarro, he has an art piece that says something like 1,000 machines don't make a nice flower.
I don't disagree, but it's if I don't separate the making money part of it from the making art, then it becomes a really challenging conversation. But making money is important especially in New York City. You need to be able to get a job doing the thing that you love doing, and I worry that the skills of artists are being more and more devalued because the people that are hiring the artists see that they can cut a bunch of like aggressive corners and get something that's 90% there for 1/1000th the cost, and for 1/1000th the time that it would take an actual artist. And I can see why that's alluring for people that are in power, because they want to be able to save money here and there, and it's going to come at the expense of artists. Like 10 years ago, none of my friends were unemployed, but now it's like every 2 months a new one is like, yeah, I just got laid off, and they're in design or they're in copywriting or they're in illustration. And so I can't deny that the effect is pronounced. I'm scared what a year from now is going to look like, what 2 years from now is going to look like, when like the minimum Claude subscription is going to be $800 instead of $20. Like, then they've got you, and you're going to be stuck, because for people that are learning to code now and deciding maybe I don't need to learn, well, like, why would I learn Python? I got this machine that writes all the Python I want. When that becomes gated and they don't have access to it anymore because they're priced out of it, or maybe that company goes out of business, then they're going to have to look around and realize that they've missed out on being self-sufficient. And I'm still wrestling with how I feel about that. It seems bad.
It seems bad.
It seems bad.
That's a pessimistic day.
It seems bad. That'll be the title of my next talk. This all seems bad, right? Right.
What does that mean for agencies? So a little bit of background. When I moved to Barcelona, I somewhat landed. I was a weird profile because I was like coding sites, writing, designing, and no one knew where to put me. And I landed into this agency that was an early digital agency, and we were doing like immersive experiences on the web, of course using a lot of Flash. Yeah. And the agency won a Cyber Lion in Cannes for a banner. Now we don't like banners, but back then, yeah. A banner that took over the media outlet, and like it was kind of. So, anyways, out of that work and early e-commerce as well, I got an offer to move to New York and worked at RGA as a creative director for Nike. And then I learned that you've founded Barbarian, which was a competitor, and we probably like lost pitch work against each other.
Maybe, I mean,
but we don't know.
Likely.
We both have like that relationship with agencies. You founded Barbarian Group, which is still
they're still around. Yeah,
they're still around.
They're just Barbarian now.
Barbarian.
Trim the name.
And what's your take on like agencies and creative services in this new?
I don't have any deep take. When I was at Barbarian Group, I sort of fulfilled the same I hate clients role. So it's like, I was really good at Flash, and at the time, that was all you needed to have an agency. And so we were making Flash websites. We were making banner ads that, would take over, and it'd be a game that you didn't even want to play. And that was fine. And then at some point, I said, you know what, guys, to my business partners, I don't want to do Flash anymore. I want to do processing. The thing about processing is no one's going to pay you to put Java in a browser. It's like, well, that's nonsense. So I effectively sort of turned myself into like a non-paying R&D team of one because I wanted to learn processes.
You seem to be good at this.
Well, it works out, and that's why I haven't learned my lessons. Like one of the first projects that I made was like Apple said, we want that. And so that's great for Barbarian Group because it became a Barbarian Group project. So I don't think that anybody was worried that I wasn't doing enough to help the company get better and stronger. But I did not touch most of the projects we did that, like, we made the Subservient chicken, which is, some people say it was the first viral website. I didn't touch it.
Do you want to describe it? Some people might not.
Yeah. Burger King gave us creative freedom. And so our CEO, Ben Palmer, I think it was his idea, decided that the website would be a faked live webcam of somebody in the Burger King chicken outfit in a basement doing whatever you asked it to. So you could say, like, build a fort. And so we had enough pre-shot video clips that the chicken would just like walk over and make a fort out of the couch cushions. And, most people would ask him to like do something lewd, and it would wave its little finger. And for a while, there was enough variety in there that people didn't realize that it was not real-time cam, art, whatever you want to call it. So that did really well, but at the end of the day, I can't even like say that I worked on that because I was probably too busy, in a dark corner writing Java that nobody else cared about. So to answer your question, I don't have any deep takes about agencies and what they should be doing now. I assume they're all downsizing. That's my current assumption. If the basement chicken taught viral, what does frictionless viral teach anyone? That's a Kaido. That's a solid question. That is.
Who knows?
That's a perfect analogy of what's wrong with society right now. Wow. That's great.
I do remember. So we were in. I guess you were in Barbarian West Coast, right? San Francisco.
Yeah, I started the West Coast office. It started in Boston, and then I think we expanded into New York right around the time I wanted to live in San Francisco. So I opened up the San Francisco office. So
yes. So I remember, I don't know if you coincided with my friend Edu Po, who started as a chief creative officer in New York for Barbarian.
Yeah.
And I remember they had, I guess you do remember, like they had like this continuous desk.
Oh yeah, the
right?
super desk.
You built the super desk. So
I was gone long before the super desk, but
okay.
I would still show up and work at the super desk. What a thing that was.
Nostalgic, eh? So basically what it was is like the whole agency was one desk. Yeah. And it was a continuous desk all like floating around, and everyone was
very sculptural.
Sitting on the same desk.
Yeah,
very sculptural, yeah.
It photographs well, but
it was not practical.
It was not practical. It was another one of Ben Palmer's ideas. He's like, what if we all had like one desk? It was an interesting, sort of beautiful piece of like fabrication, because it created archways that you walk under that had like spaces for you to like sit and chat with people, and it sort of turned into the kitchen, and so it was novel, but I didn't have to live with it. So I heard it was not very well received, and so they eventually tried to sell it on eBay. It's like, free if you come take it out of here. I don't think anybody fell for it. So they just had to dismantle it and go back to, boring rectangular desks.
It was a great media stunt, right? Like it made a lot of like headlines and so on.
Well, I don't think the headlines were flattering. I think it was like, can you believe what these people did?
I guess it leads me to a question about working in person. And collaborating in person,
sure,
versus the remote cultures that we just got used to. We Automattic have been distributed remote for 20 years. So for a long time, it's like part of our DNA. But like many creatives and many studios and agencies adopted that new workflow later. So I guess what's your take? Because you have a mix, right? You have an office, but you never go, and you have teams elsewhere.
Yeah. So in September of 2019, we signed a 7-year lease on a beautiful space that we hired an architect to do a build out. We got these like a central conference room and these bookshelves, and it was really lovely. And then we were in it for about 5 months, and then we weren't for 7 years. My personal attitude towards like work from home versus working in person is we lucked out because we all had the opportunity to work as a team out of that office. We all knew each other. We've been friends for years, and so there wasn't any concern about not building out the culture, because we already understood and knew how to work with each other. So switching to remote wasn't really a big deal for us. We're not super large at the time. I think we were maybe 10 people right when COVID hit, and it was easy to work from home because we didn't have to worry about building team camaraderie because we all liked each other. I personally love working from home. I was often having to babysit renders, and that's not fun to do at an office at like 11 o'clock at night, and you still have to commute home. So being able to just like go into my home office and check to see if everything's still running was great, and I never want to go back. We're scattered throughout our CTOs in Pennsylvania, our creative directors in Austin, our head of production is in Iowa. We've got 2 designers that live here in New York. We all try to meet up at the office every Wednesday. They succeed in doing that more often than I do. But we're not a company that's 1,600 people or whatever Automattic is, so I can see why there might be a difference of opinion there. But for me, I think it wasn't an issue because we all sort of knew and liked each other, and there wasn't any concern that needed to be built up in person.
You have that kind of physical, like you said, Wednesdays, you don't go that often, but you don't rely too much on the physical experience because you have like a long-standing relationship, and the trust is built in, so you kind of
exactly
work from that trust.
Yeah.
I guess we talked about like a few cycles, a few tools, a few skills. Things have changed, and we've gone through different the few phases. But things are even changing faster now. Like they're just going so fast. What doesn't change and will not change for you?
My attitude towards clients, probably. I think that's found like a nice equilibrium.
You should put that in your bio.
Like, if you're a client,
adversarial to like.
I'm adversarial towards clients. That's my strong suit. The ideas are still going to be more important than the execution. I think if the idea is solid, then sure, it doesn't matter how you build it. The ideas are. I mean, have you ever tried to like ideate with Claude? It throws back a bunch of dumb shit, and it's never made me change course in a way that was pronounced. Like I never sat down to go over a brief with Claude and been like, oh wow, like I never would have considered that. It's always just like sort of average, like what you would expect to hear from like an intern. No offense to any interns. So the idea of like coming up with the idea, like I don't think that Claude would have come up with Subservient Chicken in a million years because it was just so out of left field and nobody had any sense that it would work and it was just bizarre. And like AI is not at the point where it's going to be able to come up with something that isn't like an average of the training data. So hopefully the ideas stay the most important part of a project, and if you can, use AI to build it faster, then I'm not going to shit on you for doing it. But
tell me a positive on AI.
to tell you what,
A positive story about AI.
positive story about AI. When I first tried to learn how to use an Arduino, like a breadboard with electronics, it was back in Barbarian group, still in Boston. So it was probably the year it came out. I think it was called Wiring. I think there was a version called Wiring. And I was like, I want to make an LED blink, so this will be fun. And like within 10 minutes, I fried the USB ports on my Mac Tower. No idea what I did wrong. I still don't know. It's like people were like, I didn't even think that was possible. And I was like, well,
Looks
showed
like
you. But recently, sometime last year, I was like, I want to give it another shot. And so I interfaced with Claude as best I could. And I was like, I want to try this again. And he gave me a shopping list with like links to Adafruit and told me what to buy, and walked me through how to like build pretty substantial things like wiring up a microphone to an ESP32 wireless board, being able to do audio analysis that sends it to an LED strip, like dials that control the gain and all that stuff. And I don't know that I would have gotten there if I hadn't have had somebody spell it out for me, because the tutorials that you find maybe are a little dated, or they don't show you specifics that you need to be aware of, like how not to fry your USB ports. But I found it to be a really positive experience, and in general, I'm finding it to be very rewarding to use AI to teach me to do something that I didn't know how to do, and leveled me up as quickly as possible. So I see the benefit there, and like I used it to help me get up to speed with Touch Designer. I was like, take this code that I wrote for Houdini, turn it into GLSL for me so I can just drop it into a Touch Designer project. And, 5 minutes later, I got a working thing in Touch Designer. So that's kind of rewarding.
that's an inspiring feature of yours, that you keep learning.
Yeah.
You keep getting into
Well, I keep
trouble.
the grass is always greener. It's like I keep seeing shiny things, and I'm like, oh, see, I wish I did that with my life. So I don't know that that's a positive quality.
So your own insecurity is driving you to like these.
Yeah, I just like my mind wanders. I just see other people's stuff, and I'm like, wow, I should have done that. I could have done that. Why didn't I do that? Maybe I'll start doing that now. So it's been there's places where I find it to be very useful, and like in the medical world, like not to be a downer, but for years doctors told my mom she had constipation, and because she was going in and complaining about stomach pains, and then they didn't determine that it was ovarian cancer until she was stage 4. So sometime after ChatGPT came out, I gave him, the symptoms as my mom described it to me, and it said could be constipation, but given her age, she should probably be screened for ovarian cancer. I'm like, well, I can't say AI is shit, because that would have made a very meaningful impact on my mom's life if it had been 5 years earlier. So it's not all negative. There's some definite places where I think AI could benefit society. It helps with medical research. Like having your own like free lawyer, that would be amazing.
Tax accountant.
Exactly, someone to do my taxes. Like I don't want to think about it. Just
They're very expensive in New York City, so
They are.
Yeah.
Very expensive.
So you're constantly learning. You mentioned Touch Designer. I'm trying to so maybe you can teach me some Touch Designer.
Yeah, I'll just tell you to go to Claude.ai. Teach me touch. I mean, if Friction taught you everything, it went away.
It's gone. What should the new Robert Hodgins learn?
I've been very vocal about saying that I'm glad I'm in my 50s because I don't know what I would do if I was in my 20s. And that's kind of a bummer. But I had someone come up to me at the conference in Milan, and he said that I think because of like family medical reasons, he didn't get too into it. He said that he had to drop out of doing design to like take care of some stuff. And 10 years later, he's trying to get back into it, but like everything's changed. And he was like, "Do you have any advice?" And I was like, I just wanted to give him a hug because I was like, "No, like you're maybe fucked." Like, I could tell him, like follow your bliss, like find something you're passionate about. But like at the end of the day, he's probably not going to get a job doing that. And so it felt hollow to say that. So I was like, I'm sorry, I don't have any advice for you because things are changing so fast. But I did say that use this time as an opportunity to try to learn some things that maybe you'd put off learning in the past because it was too hard to learn. Like maybe he wants to learn how to code in Arduino. Now's like a good time to do some of those things. I don't think it'll get you work, but you might luck out. I would say try not to cut all the corners if you're coming out of art school now and you're seeing the landscape change so much. Don't just assume you can stop doing things by hand and stop learning and stop getting better at developing your sensibilities.
Yourself.
Yeah, yourself. Like, make mistakes and be content with the fact that the mistakes are sort of the things that are going to make you into a better person. But again, as soon as you put the job market into that conversation, I don't know what advice to give people because from what I'm seeing and reading about, it's just getting harder and harder for really skilled people to keep their jobs because somebody decided that AI can do it better for cheaper.
Should we open it up to some questions? I think there was someone in the back that had a question earlier.
Do you still have a question?
Do you still have a question?
I think the question.
Can you introduce yourself as well?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all. Thank you so much for the great conversation. I'm a freshman at Columbia studying computer science, and I'm really interested in AI and creating AI music specifically. And my question earlier was for the demo you presented, you mentioned that you use coding platforms. So it wasn't about AI generation. It was more about you coded up how you want to present it. And then it was a digital representation instead of directly relating to AI, right?
Right.
So I think that's very interesting. And then how do you think your work connects to AI? Do you think, like you said, AI speeds up the process, but then kind of the key or the beauty of it still comes in the human design?
So the way that I have personally been using AI is generally it's like one of a couple categories. The first category is I've written this code 20 times. I don't want to write it again. I understand all the nuances of how to make like a flocking sim, but maybe I haven't done it in a GLSL compute shader before. I don't really feel like I need to go through that process again. So I love using AI to take something that I've written, turn it into some other form, and prevent me from having to spend weeks like tracking down like why a specific thing doesn't work. So I'm kind of gatekeeping my AI use because I'm like I did it by hand once. I did it by hand multiple times. I'm ready to let somebody else do it for me. So that's one aspect. I use generative AI for doing idea generation, mood boards, composition thoughts, but I draw the line at posting anything that was made with AI as being my personal work. That's just a line I draw in the sand for myself. I don't think it makes sense for everybody, but for me, if I make content with AI, like I made some really amazing pieces the other day where I have this fondness for Dutch still life paintings. I think they're like just the setup is really lovely. But I started to wonder like, could you have a cat and be a still life painter? Because the cat would just like mess shit up. So I made a bunch of still life images in Midjourney And then I brought them into Kling and had a cat jump up on the table and like knock some things over and then leave. And I mean, it was amusing. It was, it filled a void in my soul. But at the end of the day, I didn't feel like I could like post that as work that I made because it didn't feel like it was mine. The idea was, like clever, I guess, but the thought of like putting it on my Instagram and being like, look at this thing I made felt weird to me because at the end of the day, I wish I had done it by hand, and that would have taken me years. Like I'd have to learn how to rig and animate a cat. Like that's somebody's like 20 years of work to get to a point where they can make that look good. And so I knew that it didn't make sense for me to try to build it out. But then once I actually made it and I could see the final results, it just felt really disposable to me. And I didn't have any sense of pride about it. And it just sits in a folder in my desktop gathering dust because what am I going to do with it now? It's like the idea has been executed. Time to move on to the next thing. So it's tough.
We also talked about Suno.
Yeah, and I don't. Again, this is personal to me. I'm an old man, so I imagine people that are in their 20s, just coming out of school, have like a more familiar understanding of how AI is affecting them directly. But I went down a Suno AI music generation rabbit hole, and for about 2 months, I was listening to just music that I made with Suno. And I found myself like running through the park just listening to this AI generated soundtrack. And it ended up making me feel kind of gross because I knew it wasn't something anybody else was going to be interested in. I didn't want to be like, hey, you should hear these tracks I made, because to me it felt like, when someone's like, oh my God, I had the weirdest dream last night. And you're like, so you're going to tell it to me and I'm going to have to like pretend that that's important. That's how AI generated music feels to me, is that it removes the ability to appreciate it communally, and it becomes a personal act. Because if you look forward to a point where everybody can make their own music with AI, then why are you ever going to listen to anybody else's music? And that's something that I find to be really challenging because I have bands that I like and bands that I enjoy, and I like when I meet other people that like those bands and listen to that music. I just don't think we're going to see that with AI-generated music. And it's possible that there's a way for like the really good AI-generated music to sort of bubble up and be recognized as something that multiple people should listen to. But anytime someone's ever sent me their AI music track, I'm like, 30 seconds into it, I'm like, okay, that I'm sure you love it, but this is not doing it for me. I kind of feel the same way about like Midjourney images. I've never given two shits about what anybody else made with Midjourney, because why should I? Like, they made it for them. It's very personal for them, but there's so much Midjourney stuff that all looks great. I don't have an in to be able to say which ones are meaningful to me, because none of them are, except the ones that I made for myself. Those are great. Other people should see the ones that I made, but nobody ever will. So that's that tension that I'm getting from using AI for the purposes of sharing output with other people. If it doesn't have more of your struggle and personality in it, I think people are just not going to be that compelled. That's a downer. Was that a downer?
That's a downer.
That was a downer.
Yes, that's a downer. Let's move on to a next question there.
I didn't think we could get down enough, but you brought it one step further down, and I appreciate that. I'm also on the client side of things.
Oh, great.
So thank you. Thank you so much. What's fascinating about it is I'm a creative who invented a data tool many years ago, 2 decades ago. And I find myself on the client side and every day teetering between I'm the creative and I'm the client as I'm building this company. So by the way, I'm looking for lots of help creatively. So anyone here who wants to approach me, please feel free. But what I want to talk about...
Do you pay?
I do, yeah.
Cool.
Words matter. People matter. creative expression matters. What we do as individuals every day matters. What we do as expressing our individuality matters. And I want to have you guys talk about the space between a good idea and a bad idea, right? How we think creatively. That I'm seeing it in some of your work here, where I can see like really shitty things that happen, but then there's a great moment. So
excuse me.
Talk about, without that contrast, it doesn't work, right? So talk about that space between the good and the bad, and why that journey between there is very important as creative people.
That's a long question.
Clients, right?
Clients. I don't like them either, but I cannot, I cannot be so outspoken.
Well, so like, there's a lot of flocking sims in my reel, and the first flocking thing I ever did looked like, generic 2D little arrows. There's maybe 100 of them. But I was so enamored with the concept that I decided that I needed to explore it further and to try to understand it more deeply. So I would read white papers of, what like collective animal behavior scientists think is happening in bird swarms, and I would try to find a way to incorporate that into my code. Or I would look at refs both in real life and on YouTube of bird swarms, and coming up with a concept that I think I could put into my code that would make it behave more realistically. And so I got to be really familiar with this very specific code base, and it gave me a really great appreciation of seeing it in real life. Like, even just like, stupid New York City pigeons, when there's like 50 of them that are all banking at the same time, I feel a sense of awe when I look at that. And I don't know that I would have gotten there naturally if I didn't spend so much time trying to understand that phenomenon. So there were plenty of times where I didn't know what I was doing, and whatever thing I tried failed, and, like all the birds just converged on a point, and like you work through those mistakes. You get a deeper understanding, sort of an innate understanding of what the code is doing and how to like sort of massage it to do something slightly different. And I wouldn't trade that for the world. And I worry that that's something that fewer and fewer people are going to have the luxury of doing, because they're not going to be given the time to explore an idea for decades. I mean, because that's ridiculous, especially coming from a client. But like, no client's going to be like, we'll get back to you in 2043, or like, show us what you've learned. I think with the proliferation of AI, it's becoming harder and harder for people to find the time to explore the things that they're passionate about, because they feel like they have to like sort of keep up with how quickly everybody else is moving.
I think also like that optimization towards that, show me tomorrow, because it's so easy to do. I'm all for it. I think these tools are unlocking a lot of things for many people, especially if you are somewhat transversal to different skills. Like it unlocks like a lot of like things that you haven't done because limitations. But my worry is that we are locked into a screen and a chat feed and so on. I got to this creative job to interact with people and interact with the world and have a feedback loop, right? Like I say an idea, you give me like some feedback, and we have that brainstorm that doesn't exist anymore. That's why I got to this job. So I think if we lose that, that's why I was asking about the physical and the remote experience, because the remote also limits that a bit. And these tools are risking that creative process a little. There are a lot of hands, so let's go there. Also, I don't know how long. 1 or 2 more? Okay. I see people eating. Hello.
There's food.
Yeah.
Exciting.
All right.
Hi, Robert. Hi, Pablo.
Let's ask the question more directly without making like a long point because we might lose it.
Oh, okay. Then I don't have a question. I was just making a long, drawn-out point. No, but anyway, back to the kind of the education side of things. I teach at NYU Tisch virtual production.
Cool.
At the Martin Scorsese Virtual Production Center. We're kind of intersection between film and creative.
Can you get closer to the?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can hear that. So yeah.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, definitely. I have a lot of students now who are coming up, and I went to school similar to you for illustration, and then moved into creative technology as well. So my students, I see kind of like, half and half. Some are adopting AI and some are very fearful that it's going to, take their jobs, right? So my question is, like, what advice, and you probably covered this a little bit towards that, and you're already cringing, but I didn't want to do a long, drawn-out point, and here I am. But I guess the question is, like, what would you give students, and you talk about the journey and exploration of the creative process, like, with this new tool, and that's something you've had to adopt as tools come and go, like Flash, processing, all of that. So I guess, is it more about the process of the creative exploration than it is the result that you are, is that your sort of path, your North Star?
The short answer is yes. The longer answer is as long as they're not on autopilot and they're just like, well, maybe I'll just bang something out. It'll be fine because, like, what are they going to care? It's going to look great. AI made it. I've got all this free time. As long as they're not just dialing it in and just like putting none of their personality, none of their passions into it, I can see that it can be just another tool for them because they were teenagers probably when it was first becoming a prominent tool that people could use. So they've got maybe a more nuanced take on how to incorporate it into their creative process without it feeling like a compromise. It comes down to the story you're trying to tell. If you're just making generic stuff because it's easy, then don't expect anybody else to give a shit about it. And hopefully that's probably about as positive as I can get.
Yeah, that's Rob. I think one thing that I also would say is that we're seeing a lot of outsourcing of creative sources. We ask for references instead of feeding ourselves with those references. So highly recommend, just go back to the books, go back to artworks, feed yourself and build your own local model, if you want to call it that way, because then it will become much richer the way you interact with the tools. I think we forget that and we outsource that to the technology these days. And we don't read enough, we don't watch the proper movies, we don't go to see Raffaello to the Met. All your students should go to see Raffaello to the Met, right? And that will probably help them to appreciate Rob's work or others' work or create their own. That makes sense? Jeff?
Oh, I think you got to wait for a mic. There's rules.
Okay. It was a longer point, but I'll try to make it fast. Would you not agree that, and with your students too, that the more you know about something, the better your prompts will be? So when you talk about like education and everything, and you're saying education, that's not going to be the same, but is that really going to change? Like even if like if you know what you're talking about, if you know what you're doing, you're going to give better prompts.
Yeah. I think that's fair. Maybe up to a point. I don't know what that point is yet, but I think because I know how to write code, I probably get more success out of prompting Claude to write some code for me because I can better walk through it.
You also think before you architect it in your mind.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Because I know
also
how I would build
Yes.
it. I just want to make somebody else do it faster. But with the number of like data centers that are being built. I'm just trying to figure out, like, in 2 years how much better things are going to be. And I think we're probably going to get to a point where I could just point it at somebody's work and say, build that for me. And I won't have to know anything about code, and I'll get really good results from it. We're not there yet. Like, every now and then I try to make it do a flocking. So I'll make Midjourney bang out an image of some birds, and I'll run it through like Kling or Cdance and say, make it look like a flock of birds flying. And it's still like kind of crap. It's getting better and better and I just assume at some point it's going to be perfect, and it'll be indistinguishable from, the footage that I see on YouTube. Yeah.
Okay, last question. Carol, you choose.
You're right here. There you go.
Hi, Pablo and Robert. Thank you so much. I'm right here.
Hi.
I'm a design and media student at New York University, and we're also conducting research on how LLMs can perform better with context and memory. So we're essentially doing something where LLMs perform better. But the way we are building the prototype is using, anti-gravity cursing, forward code, and all of these. So somewhere, I think as a designer who's researching, like, I feel hypocritical that we're basically using LLMs just for them to perform better, But that's where the critical question somewhere I feel hides. At what point and to what level do you think designers will eventually be able to command how AI models will be trained and how user-centric they become? Because it can't be so that we're going to be using them to, assist our work. I mean, eventually we might have a say on how they're going to operate or something. What do you think about that?
I don't have any sort of deep thoughts about that subject in particular. I think right now the AI space is so dominated by really large, billion-dollar corporations that the thought that there's going to be something that's good enough that can be run locally and easily trained on the things that I want to train it on, but still produce the same quality of results as what you're seeing from the big players. Like, I don't know if that's ever going to happen. It's possible. I think, we'll need everybody to get a few 5090s running on their computer at home. But the limited experience I've had with running sort of local LLMs, just to get something running on like a Raspberry Pi or whatever, you're just like, wow, that's a huge step backwards in quality. This isn't even fun anymore, because this is like, it's just going back 2 years is such a huge change in the quality of the outputs, that I haven't personally had much success with it, at least for the types of things that I was trying to do. But I mean, who knows? Hopefully we'll get there. And I don't know, do you have anything?
Not really. I have some closing remarks, and we're going to close, and we can continue the conversation over there at the bar. There's food and drinks, and you got your tag, so you can introduce yourselves. I'm just going to read out loud that we'll have another of these events on June 24th.
You seem so surprised.
Pretty soon. And we hope to see you there. Please join us to have a drink and some food. And we'd like to say hi. And also say hi to Rob.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.